In this video we're going to look at how to post a Sandra report onto the Avid Audio Forums, also known as the DUC, which stands for Digi User Conference. As you may know, Pro Tools audio interfaces and Pro Tools software used to be marketed under the name Digi Design, but that has since changed to just Avid. So if you're having a problem with Pro Tools or a Digi Design or Avid audio interface and you come across the DUC, the first place you should look is the Help Us Help You Read This Before Posting thread. So we'll click that. And that takes us here. In this video we're just focusing on how to post a Sandra report, so we're going to skip this. But if you're having a problem, be sure to read all of this before posting. So posting a Sandra report, you notice further down in this thread, Windows users need to provide a Sandra report. Windows users must provide a Sandra report because computers running Windows could be configured thousands of different ways. There are hundreds of different computer manufacturers, or you could have built the computer yourself. Even computers with the same manufacturer name and model may vary slightly on the components that are in the computer. So it's very important to have a Sandra report. So in this red text we see, please use SI Software's Sandra Lite application to generate a full system profile, and it gives us the link. It also gives us detailed instructions on how to post a Sandra report. So the best way to get your question answered as soon as possible is before even posting your initial post is come to the Help Us Help You thread, which you can get to right on the main page of the DUC. Read through all this, and if you're a Windows user, go ahead and get your Sandra report ready. Alternatively, if you've already made a post describing your problem and then someone directed you to this thread, such as here, when someone says start here and they give you a link, and that link of course is to the Help Us Help You thread, or someone may post something like this. This is the post I use a lot. It gives you the same instructions as the Help Us Help You thread. It also gives you detailed instructions of how to run the Sandra report and then post it on the DUC. It gives you a link to the Sandra plus a link to the Help Us Help You thread, just in case you don't trust my link. Also note, in the Help Us Help You thread it says, if you have been referred to this thread and reply without providing the information requested above, including the Sandra report for Windows users, your post is very likely to be given lower priority in favor of those who have provided complete information. It's very important for those trying to help you to have detailed information, because no one wants to give you inaccurate information. Other things you need to post are your DigiDesign, Avid, or M-Audio hardware model. So if you have an 003 or 11 rack, make sure you always post your Pro Tools version. Now your computer model and processor speed will be included in the Sandra report, as well as OS version, but you can also post those outside of the Sandra report. Also very important is a concise list of the troubleshooting you've already tried. Please be as specific as possible. So if you've already tried some things, make sure you include that in your post. Say, this is what I've tried and it worked or it didn't work. If it's a plugin you're having problems with, be sure to note the version of the plugin and the exact error code you're getting. If it's a number code, give it the number. If it's a description, give the description. Be very specific. So now back to the Sandra report. So we see this post. So someone has responded to us. They've given us this post, or they've given us a link to this thread. If we come to the Help Us Help You thread, we'll click this link. If someone has given us a post with a link included, we'll click that link. Of course, be sure to look in the lower left-hand corner of your browser to see exactly what site you're going to. It should be sisoftware.co.uk. So we click the link. That opens up the SI Software website. The browser I'm using is Google Chrome, by the way. So here we are on the correct website, and reading from the instructions given, under SI Software Sandra, click on Download and Buy to download the free Sandra Lite version or purchase other versions. So you can download the free version. Alternatively, if you think you'll be using Sandra a lot, you could purchase it. Sandra's a great program, and if you have a use for it, it's highly recommended. But for this video, we'll assume you'll only be using Sandra a couple of times. So we'll download the free version. And also included are other instructions. After installing Sandra, we click on the Hardware tab, run the Computer Overview, then copy and paste into your post here on the DUC. That's also what's said in the official Help Us Help You thread, as you can see. So here we are on Sandra, and if we remember the instructions given to us on the DUC, click on Download and Buy. So right here is the Download and Buy. We click that. Then it says to download the free Sandra Lite version or purchase other versions. So we're back here. Here's the Lite version. Here's the paid versions. We want the Lite version. Come down to Download. Then you're given several different options of websites you can download Sandra software from. A site I like to download from is FileHippo. FileHippo has several good programs hosted on that site, like CCleaner, and of course it has Sandra. But you could also use something like TechSpot. If we were to go to TechSpot, we'll see it's a SI software Sandra Lite. We'll click on the download button right here. We click that, and automatically our download will start. Again, I'm using Google Chrome, so the download shows up at the bottom, and I can save or discard. I'm going to discard it, but you would want to save it. Your browser may of course look different when the download begins. Also, if your download does not begin automatically, you could click here to manually commence the download. We are going to go to FileHippo to download Sandra. So here's the FileHippo website, and over here on the right side of the screen is download the latest version. You could also download older versions here in the archives list, but we want the latest version, so we click download latest version. Thank you, your download will start automatically. Again, I'm using Google Chrome, so that shows up down here, and I would click save. And with my internet connection, it takes about 1 minute. Yours may vary. Again, if the download does not start automatically, you could click this link right here. So our download's about done, and now it's complete. Now again, I'm on Google Chrome, so I can just click this, and it will open up the Sandra Lite installer, as you can see down here. Keep in mind it may take a couple seconds to open up. Alternatively, if you close out of your browser, you come down to your Start menu, Computer, and go to Downloads. From there you can launch the Sandra installer application by either double-clicking, or if you have a problem, you can right-click and then choose Run as Administrator. But we've already got it going, so we will continue. Click I accept, hit Next, Next, then it'll show you where it will be installed. Default is fine. We hit Install. And you may have a Java window pop up. I happen to know that this system has the most up-to-date Java, but to be sure, you should always choose Install, and I'll do that anyway. Then Java will download the most up-to-date installer. And as you can see, this software has already been installed on your computer. Would you like to reinstall it? I'm going to choose no because I already have that software on here. If your Java is not up to date, be sure to install the latest version. So I'll choose no. And then my installation is done. You may have a few more pop-ups saying you need a certain program installed as well, such as a certain Microsoft package. If that comes up, then you should probably install it. So now that Sandra Lite is installed, you'll notice here we have the Launch Sandra box checked. So when I click Finish, Sandra will launch automatically. Alternatively, if you did not want to launch Sandra now, you could uncheck that and click Finish, and when you were ready to run Sandra, come down to your Start menu, and it should be listed as a recent installed program. If it's not, just choose All Programs and scroll down to the SI Software folder. Another way to get to Sandra is to go to your Control Panel, and you will see a SI Software Sandra link listed here as well. You can click that to also launch Sandra. But since we have this box checked and we want to run Sandra to get our report, we'll go ahead and click Finish. This will launch Sandra for us. Then you get some few tips here. We don't need to see any of this. We'll close it out. We're also done installing Sandra, so we'll close this browser window. So now we have Sandra Lite installed and launched. And let's refer back to our thread on the DUC. So we've already clicked Download and Buy and downloaded the free Sandra Lite version. After installing Sandra, click on the Hardware tab and run the Computer Overview. Then copy and paste your post here on the DUC. We can also see that here. Click on Download and Buy, download the free version, click on the Hardware tab, Computer Overview. That's very important that we run the correct report. So back in Sandra, we click on the Hardware tab, which is right up here. We could also double click here under Module Type, double click on Hardware. That takes it to the Hardware tab. But it's a little easier just to click the Hardware tab. And let's refer back to our thread. Run the Computer Overview. The Computer Overview, right under Computer Management, we see Computer Overview. We don't need any of these other reports. We don't need any reports from Benchmark or Tools or Software Support or Favorites. We need the Hardware tab, Computer Overview. So we double click on Computer Overview. Then we see Sandra is running. It's generating our report. And after a few seconds, or maybe a minute or two, depending on your system, your report will show up. This is what your report should look like. If your report is much longer than this report, then you have run the wrong report. Say it's several and several and several pages. In that case, you would close this window and you would come back to Sandra, make sure the Hardware tab is chosen, and make sure you've run Computer Overview. Once you have the correct Computer Overview report, you can't just click and copy this text. In order to copy this text and post it on the DUC, you can use the generic Windows keyboard shortcut of Control-C. Control-C will copy all this to your clipboard. You can't right-click and copy. As you see, that makes no difference when I right-click. So you'll use Control and C, which is a very basic Windows shortcut you should know. Or instead of Control-C, you could come down to this bottom toolbar, and right next to the first icon that says Options, right here you'll see an icon that says Copy to Clipboard, and it gives you the generic shortcut of Control and C. So we can either click this button once and have it copied to our clipboard, or hit Control C. To verify that this has been copied to our clipboard, we'll come down to our Start menu and launch Notepad. Once in Notepad, we can right click and hit Paste, or we can use another generic Windows keyboard shortcut of Control V. Control V is Paste. Another generic keyboard shortcut for Windows you should know is Control A. Control A will select all. And another generic keyboard shortcut you should know is Control X. Control X will cut. So we could hit Control V to paste, and then Control A, and then Control X to cut. Or if we didn't want to use Control V to paste, we could right click and hit Paste. And then here in Notepad, you could look over your report. It's a good idea to take your report, paste it in the Notepad, and save it before you go to the DUC and post it on the DUC. Just in case some glitch happens where your post doesn't go through. That way you don't have to rerun the report. You have it saved, and you can look at it yourself offline anytime you want. So now that we have our report copied to our clipboard, either through Notepad or right from Sandra by clicking this button or hitting Control C, now it's time to come back to the DUC. If you have already started a thread, be sure to go back to that same thread. So we'll just choose a random thread and say this is my thread and I don't have a Sandra. I'd come down and I'd hit Post Reply. The title's already in there, then I'd right click and hit Paste. And then I would submit my reply. This is not my thread, so I won't confirm. If this is your first post on the DUC for this specific problem, then locate the correct section. We'll say my problem was with Pro Tools LE 8 on Windows. And we will click the correct section. We'll then come down to this button that says New Thread. And we'll give it a very descriptive title. We don't just want to post something like Help, because that's going to be ignored or laughed at. We need to post our specific problem. Something like Help PT 8.0.3 gives, this error. And we'll, of course, have the error posted. Then in the message, we'll be sure to post something that's courteous. We must remember that the DUC is a user's form. The DUC is not an official support form for Avid. If you want official support from Avid, be sure to go to the Avid website, locate the Support and Services tab. You will then choose the correct section and contact the official support. Although there are times when official support is given on the DUC by Avid, do not expect it. This is a user's form first and foremost. So we will describe our problem. Describe our problem. After we describe our problem, then we'll list any error codes. Or say we get an error message that says you're running out of CPU power. We'll list that here. If we're having a problem with a plugin, we'll say, plugin, say strike is giving us a problem. And then we'll list the problem. We'll also spell check. That's very important. Be as specific as possible with your problem. Then be sure to note the version of Pro Tools, the exact version. If you're running 9, be sure to list the exact version of 9. If it's 9, then hit 9.0. If it's 9.0.2, don't just put PT9, put PT9.0.2. Be very specific. If it's a plugin problem, be sure to list the plugin version. If it's Strike, how do I know if it's Strike 1.0 or 1.5? That needs to be listed. 1.5. Be sure to list the interface you're using. If you're using an 003, make sure you write 003. If your 003 is the controller version, I'd write out, controller version. If it's the rack, I'd write out rack. If you're using the 11 rack, you could use something like 11R or 11 rack. Also list anything else that you think is pertinent to your setup. And you can always refer back to the official Avid Help Us Help You thread to know what you need to post. All this stuff needs to be posted. Make sure you post your Sandra. After you have described your problem in great detail, and you have also described what you've tried to troubleshoot the problem, after all that, then you want to post your Sandra. So we have our Sandra on our clipboard. We click in here somewhere and we can right click and choose paste. We could also just hit Control V. That would also paste it into our post. Then we come down and we submit our new thread. You could choose an icon if you want, but you don't have to. You could of course preview your post if you wanted, but you'll probably just hit Submit New Thread. If your thread does not get answered immediately, do not panic. Remember, this is a user's form. This is not an official form. No one is getting paid to offer help to people on the Avid Audio forums. If you have been very specific, more than likely your question will be answered relatively quickly. And try to always be as courteous as possible on the user's forum. You're much less likely to get good help if you were to come on the forum and say new thread and just post something like Avid sucks, or PT sucks, or I hate Avid, something like that. Be descriptive in your title and be courteous. So there are some detailed videos on how to post a Sandra on the DUC. We'll go over the process one more time. First we'll open Sandra, and you'll probably default to the Home tab. Come to Hardware. We go to Computer Overview and double click. That will generate our Sandra report. From there, we can come down to this little icon right next to the options, right here, and we can click once. Copy to clipboard. It has now been copied to our clipboard. Alternatively, we could have pressed Control C. Before you post to the DUC, if you'd like to be sure it's been copied to your clipboard, open up Notepad and you can right click, or you can just hit Control V. We'll right click and hit Paste. And that confirms that our report has been copied to our clipboard. From there, we're ready to go to the DUC and post our Sandra on the DUC.